Blanche has a lot to do with that, where he does. And obviously, unfortunately, due to GW, this is no shade, it kind of is, not paying people how they should be paid or whatever. Although to be fair, I think he had a decent wage on GW, but they don't have an exclusivity on Blanchism anymore, right? Where now Blanche is spreading his wings a bit. And
he's blanching out. Oh, that was fucking awful.
Dad jokes
ahoy.
Terrible. But in all seriousness, obviously his effect on Trench Crusade, being a designer on Trench Crusade, Army Painter paints, as previously spoken, I am deep throating those Army Painter paints. I love them.
Gonna run out of that gold. No wonder it's half empty.
All over my face. Wow, Jesus Christ, I didn't expect to be doing that today.
Welcome to the In the Tank podcast. Get ready for an hour of hot 40k goodness coming in your ears. You're in the tank now, baby.
We're live.
We are indeed live. Welcome everybody to In the Tank. How you doing, my man? You okay?
Oh, great, mate. You said welking again. Yes!
Fucking hell. Great start.
I'm leaving it in.
Great
Brilliant.
Start. Did I really?
Yeah, you did. I'm going to leave it in. Yeah, we're going to listen to it back, and I'm going to prove to you now that you say it. Because you've been like, I don't say welking. And you do every fucking other week.
But now I'm questioning whether I've said that my entire life, and everyone in my sphere is just like, is that guy all right?
Just never corrected you on
is that guy
You don't
fine?
say it every time. That's the fun thing. You sort of alternate. Sometimes you'll say welcome like a normal human being. And then sometimes you're like, come from the planet Neptune. You're like, welking humans.
Well, on that fine note, how you doing? Are you right?
I'm great, yeah. I'm very good. I've got a little bit of a cold, so I apologise for my stuffiness.
Yeah, you sound stuffy as anything, mate. You do.
Yeah, I'm a little bit stuffy, so apologies for our dear listeners for that. I'm just very stuffy today, so yeah. How are you, Russ?
Doing all right.
Avoided the colds?
I hadn't at the beginning of the year, so maybe it's given me a protective sheen.
Yeah, I should hope so.
Yeah, me too. I'll be honest, I'm knackered. I'm really looking forward to my Easter break. That's, all good. Just parent life, right? And the mundanity of that and getting that done. But yeah, no, I'm cool.
Good.
Just rocking through life, as it were. I'm actually really looking forward to our next Battleborn game already.
Same.
That was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
So much fun with you.
You're going to try and take back the crown and defeat me in the barn, are you?
I don't really care anymore. I just love to play.
It was good fun, wasn't it?
When you were eyeballing me on a couple of rolls, watching it back, and you just power playing it and just
I should have done the banana trick we talked about in a very early episode. You just lock eyes and eat a banana.
But no, I'm sorry if I annoyed anyone with my enthusiasm, but I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. I thought it was so much fun.
I love your energy. You're a good egg. I know that high energy people aren't for everyone, but I love it.
I'm sure you'll have some lower energy people on anyway. So
I'm sure we will. Yeah.
I'm just
we're going to get a good mix of people on the barn, and I think we kicked it off with a good bang, which I think you need high energy
certainly a bang.
for the kickoff. Yeah, it was.
In terms of a legendary game, I think that's always going to go down in my head as one of the closest games I've ever had. So there we go.
Those score pack were an MVP. For those of you that haven't watched it, go back and watch it.
I think your MVP were your score pack, and my MVP were my Inner Circle companions.
Yes,
so
certainly.
So I think we've got a lot.
Also,
going
my
on.
score pack Lord did some work. He took on the line and just disrespected him.
No, it was my fault because I should have focused on him more, and instead I tried to be a trashy slut and go for everything at the same time.
You did exactly what everyone always says, which is not to split attacks or split fire or whatever.
I'm getting greedy and panicked. So the combination
you got a bit
of
cock
those
heavy,
two,
I think.
I did way too well. That's what I do. But there we go. Now, we've hobby news. What have we been working on? Like what's going on in your sphere? And we've got to talk about recent nerfs as well. But first of all, what have you been working on? Have you been working on anything?
Yeah, so I since we actually have had very close recordings. No, don't let them in behind the scenes. We've had very close recordings to these two podcasts, so I haven't had actual much time to do anything really. But I am planning to get some stuff done. I've got to get my my Doom's Scythe done for a couple of tournaments colonies. We've got some team events coming up, which will be
the
very
Scion
good. So that
Raider
needs to be done. Yeah, the Scion Raider, the Croissant. That needs doing. I really want to start, now that we've kind of nailed down most of the technical stuff for the barn, and I've got kind of most of that out the way. It's getting to a point now where a lot of the improvements are going to be made from just bringing more armies and better terrain to the barn. So I think we're going to start like pushing forwards with making just variety of things, getting some improved terrain and stuff like that. Because obviously Michael Core from the Oxford Onslaught, Didcot War Games, that sort of a lot. He has very kindly lent us a couple of sets of his terrain, his UKTC terrain, which look absolutely stunning. But obviously, I'm only borrowing those, so we're not going to be having them for too long. So I need to get cracking on the terrain front. So I think that's why it's kind of
sets a high bar for you to then follow through.
Yeah, it really does. And I want to get some really nice bits, some unique stuff, and make some more narrative bits as well for the table, so that we can start to add just a bit of variety and spice up the games a little bit. A nice scatter terrain and things like that, because we don't really have that at the minute. We've just got lots of gravel and lichen, which looks great, but I'd love to have some like barrels and barbed wirey bits and stuff like that. So we're going to start adding a bit of that and go from there. That's the plan in terms of hobby. It's really just pushing for the barn now. All barn, improvement. So that's what I'm going for. What about you?
I've done a lot in 2 days, weirdly. I'm pushing my way through painting the old Possessed for the event that we've got coming up, the team event. Although I'm a bit concerned because I obviously sent the guys my list and they're like, we're not sure how much of this we actually have. And I'm a bit like, oh, fuck. Like, I hope I get
You might
everything.
be painting some more, Russ.
Well, I don't know if I can, like, with the time that I have available
right.
to me. So hopefully people will come in clutch and get me some stuff. Like, Christ almighty. But I did manage to build, like, in my switch off brainy bit, a unit of 10 Mark III Nemesis Claw lads, which I am well happy with. They look fan-fucking-tastic. So I kit bashed a 10-man Mark III Horus Heresy era armor set with Nemesis claws, because I think it looks cool. And it came out great. So I'm well up for it. I sent you a picture of it before.
You did, they look great. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Although tested my Pete the War Gamery conversion stuff because they didn't line up as easy as I thought they would. So I had to do some sort of tomfoolery to get them to work. But it's good to test your old hobby chops from time to time, right? So there we go. And I'm going to paint them metallic blue.
Very nice. That'd be cool.
I'm going to spray them iron. Lead belcher, or the equivalent actual decent can, the old Colour Forge, right?
Colour Forge, yeah.
Spray them that, and then I'm going to put some contrast blues over it, and then try and
always so ezy as well. You can do the reverse trim.
Well, the reason why I'm doing this is because normally I wouldn't, because I'm old school like that, and I'm not for my word bearers at all. But the reason why I'm doing it for these guys is because the difficult bit is then freehanding lightning bolts on their various armor panels.
Yeah, that is very true.
So I'm kind of going to get a generic blue kind of cool vibe, and then I'm going to freehand some lightning bolts on various armor panels. So we'll see how
what they look like.
Fucking goes.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Though lightning bolts, like the proper Night Lords lightning bolts.
You got to do it. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to do it on every panel. No. But on each model, I'm going to choose a panel or two.
So you're not going for gold? Are you going for gold trim on them or not?
Yeah.
You're doing the proper gold trim.
Okay. Yeah. I think you have to, right? For and actually, weirdly, it fits into my word bearer's scheme because all of the panels for that are like gold. So I'm going to show it will weirdly have a bit of cohesiveness with the rest of my army where it does it, because I am addicted to, and I need to be careful because I'm going to run out of this fast. And unfortunately, at the moment, Army Painter aren't selling them individually out of the Blanche paint set yet. So if I run out, I'm fucked because I'd need to buy an entire new Blanche paint set. But the Emperor Gold Blanche, This is my gold metallic from now on. Like, it is the best gold metallic ever.
Sounds good.
So I need to like ask Army Painter when the fuck they're bringing those out and buy like 10 of them. Because I like, this is my like go-to gold now, and
money.
And I think it's half full, half gone already. Because
really?
CSM trim is a bastard. And like,
there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
You wait till you get to the Warp Talons. So those guys are pure trim. They are just pure trim.
I'm not going to get any warp talents. I'm going to get Forge World Ashen Circle jump pack marines and use them as warp talents.
Such a swanky fucker, aren't you?
Because they're word bearers anyway, and they look great. So I'm going to do that instead and use them as warp talons instead. But there we go. That's cool. Yeah, no, I'm a posh fuck. So.
Yeah, you are a posh fuck. Yeah.
There you go. So the Orc menace has been suppressed. The Imperium says no, and sent in Ordo Xenos, and have gone, nope, get in your corner again. I mean, it was silly, right?
Yeah, it was very silly.
Everyone was freaking out.
It's almost like whenever you put sustain 2 on something, it breaks the game.
Well, yes, in the circle companions, right?
It's okay on one unit, you know.
Yeah.
When you put it across a whole bloody army, it gets a little bit silly.
Well, yeah, and it also obviously paths over the Orc weakness of terrible shooting ballistic skill, right? Where you get these then spiky numbers where it doesn't matter that you're hitting on 5s anymore when you're sustaining 2 on everything. So so I think now it's sustained 1, and they've nerfed. They've also nerfed a lot of their stratagems now as well.
Yeah,
right?
I think the one to go in WAR's 2CP, which is better. It's fine.
There you go.
It needed to happen, to be fair, but I think it's brought them back in line. Everywhere's unbanning them again, so should be good.
I know Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming's happy because he was like really pissed about the fact that like that detachment even came out because it was just nuts right out the bat, right? Although I don't think. Okay, fair enough. GW's got a lot going on, but like it seemed pretty obvious to me that was going to be a busted detachment. I think we all went, sustain 2's a bit harsh.
But when you get to like an event and you see that like all of the top 3-4 players are just running that detachment, you're like, maybe
to be fair,
slightly off here.
To be fair, I'm quite glad that 10th edition has had the balancing that it's had because actually that's a notable.
That wasn't too long until they nerfed it, right? Was it about like
I mean, it technically counts as an emergency ban, though, right? Because it falls outside of their remit for time frame. But I'm glad they did it. And actually, to be fair, kudos for them actually moving, if that makes sense, at a relatively fast rate.
They need to on stuff like this, but especially if places are banning it and all that sort of stuff. It just gets messy, doesn't it?
Oh, too messy. Far too messy. Yeah. But there we go. But yes, looking forward to painting some Chaos. A Death Guard. I'm really looking forward to painting some Death Guard. We'll see. And of course, I'll let everybody know closer to the time because it's a fair distance away, but I'm planning to do a birthday stream as well of painting because I'm a sado. I'm taking my birthday off on a Monday, and then anyone that wants to come on the Discord and hang out with me whilst I'm painting or building Beastmen or whatever, because this is my birthday and fuck you, I do what I want. I might do painting and building loads of shit. I might do a bit of Morty, I might do some Beastmen, I might do some CSM stuff, but it would be Chaos themed because it'll start my year of Chaos, right?
I thought so.
But yeah, log on. And speaking of,
for those that don't know which day your birthday is, though.
Oh, sorry,
which Monday is
just Monday, May the 19th. So put it in your diaries if you want to log on. I think you'll come on at some point, right?
We'll be on the Discord. Yeah, I'll probably jump on at some point.
And speaking of, because this is a lovely wet blend, get on the Discord. Get on it. Get your ass on it now. Get on it because it's fun.
Yeah, come chat to us.
Like, comment, subscribe. Let people know that you care about us. Thank you, of course, to our wonderful Patreons. You guys,
thank you guys.
And we're slowly going through your topics, making sure that you go. We're going to have to do a hobby hangout for them at some point as well.
Yeah, we will do.
So we'll tie that down and get that all sorted. So there you go. So all good.
Brilliant.
Is that all right?
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Nice. So we're going to go for a gooey, sentimental topic to start today because we've never really talked about this per se. We've alluded to it on several occasions, right?
Yeah.
But this hobby is so broad. Why do we personally adore this hobby, right? Like, why are we like absolute patrons of the hobby? And what originally hooked us into all of this? Like, what was it? Like, what was it, Ed? Cast your mind back. Let me have it, man. Bring it on.
I think it's got to be a couple of different things. I think firstly, the aesthetics of some of the armies and that sort of stuff. Like when you're a kid, especially, you walk past the Games Workshop, you see the Space Marines and you're like, whoa, they look cool. Just catches your eye. You know, a lot of the armies back then, you just see them and you'd be like, wow, they look awesome. All the tanks, and it's just cool, isn't it? It's sci-fi shit, right? So sci-fi shit. That's the first reason. But second, I think once you get past that initial like suck you into the shop because the models look cool, and you buy a little book or a codex, and then you start reading it with your torch under the bed covers, and then you sit there and you're thinking, fuck, this is really cool. Like there's some interesting stories. The lore is really gritty and dark, and it's just. I found personally, I loved the grim dark aspect of the whole setting the most. I feel like they've kind of pussied out and eased off a bit on it lately, and they need to kind of put the foot down on again because everything's getting a little bit like almost cartoonish in a way. It's almost become a caricature of itself. They need to like get back into the real grim shit and start putting the dead babies back in and stuff like that. You know,
just get some Night Lord stories.
Shit.
Yeah, well, this is it.
Yeah.
I think Blanche has a lot to do with that. Where like,
he does.
And obviously, unfortunately, due to GW, this is no shade, but it kind of is, not paying people how they should be paid or whatever. Like, although to be fair, I think he had a decent wage on GW, but like, they don't have an exclusivity on Blanchism anymore, right? Where now Blanche is like spreading his wings a bit. And
he's
obviously
blanching out.
Blanche.
Oh, that was fucking awful.
Dad jokes ahoy.
Terrible.
But in all seriousness, you know, obviously his effect on Trench Crusade, being a designer on Trench Crusade, Army Painter paints, as previously spoken, like I am deep throating those Army Painter paints. Like I love them.
Gonna run out of that gold. No wonder it's half empty.
All over my face. Wow, Jesus Christ, I didn't expect to be doing that today. But like, you know, he's not an exclusive GW thing anymore. And it feels like they're kind of separating away from that identity, which is such a shame because for me, that is it. Like Blanche is 40k, right?
Yeah, they need to double down on the darkness for me. I think they're easing off a little bit. I mean, we'll touch on this later. So, like, because there's elements of this I think we're going to be discussing later. So I won't dive too deeply into it now. But I think in terms of just like what do I personally love, like now, like obviously that's what hooked me, and I think what do I love now about it is just the community aspect of it. I think that's what's kept me going. It's almost like, you know, you get hooked into the lore, you get hooked into the setting, the models and all that cool stuff. But then you start to build up like friends around the hobby, friendship circles, you know, communities, discords, all of this sort of stuff. And then you get to know people at events, if you go to events and do competitive. And it's just, you get all these like circles within circles. And then now wherever I go, I'm like meeting people, making new friends, or you know, reconnecting with old friends or people that I've met previously.
Nice Spaceballs, bro. Nice Spaceballs.
Yeah, exactly.
Spaceballs, bro.
Yeah, you're just getting the shit ripped out of you at every Oxford Onslaught you go to now, which is great. But it's really nice, and I love that aspect of it. And obviously now that I've got the Battle Barn, it's even more awesome because I'm getting to get all these people that I've met, these awesome people that I've played before, over here to play games live with me, which is even cooler because now we actually get to have fun entertaining you guys doing it. So that's sweet. It's all kind of come full circle. But like, it's just the community. This hobby has some bloody lovely people in it, and that is what sort of keeps me going, I think. Yeah, really does. So setting, hook me in, community keeps me going. What about you, Russ?
Do you know what? It's interesting. When I was younger, because I was quite young when I came to the hobby, because I started in 1996.
1990. You must have been, what, 34 back?
Funny. Like Achilles heel him. You're such a Jakari.
Right in the fucking heel.
Such a fucking Jakari. Such a, like, you are.
You got really good at not showing pain though. Like, because I know that hurt. And you're like,
yeah.
Asshole.
You know, just gonna crush your skull. So yes. So now you just tilted me. So like I started the hobby when I was like 7 or 8 during the times of second edition, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? Kids love, and I've started to watch this with my kids sometimes, like the sort of danger / fear, right, in controlled bursts, right? Which makes me sound like a psycho, right? But like when I first started getting into the hobby, I was so freaked out at how fucked up the setting was, right? Where and you mentioned it about the blanchy grim darkness, but like it's scary, man. It's intense. It's dark. Like, it's things you don't quite understand as a kid, but you're very intrigued, right? And like the imagery of like that, you know, the classic like Golden Throne art, or like some CSM art with some demons and shit, and you're like, wow, we're not in fucking Kansas anymore, man.
No.
Like this is and that primordial fear like really locked me in. Why are you laughing?
It's just that mental image of that sister's artwork with her holding the gun up, and you're like, this better not awaken anything in me.
Well, I think, to be honest, it probably fucking did, be fair. I think it awakened a lot in all of us, to be fair. Like, Christ, like, nice.
No, I get where you're coming from there. Yeah, you carry on.
No, but primordial fear, does that resonate with you?
I think kids love dark shit, man. Like,
did that shit freak you out,
the Brothers
right?
Grimm fairy tales are popular for a reason, right? Kids love dark stuff, you know?
Yeah, but did it freak you out as well, or was that just me? Did it scare
No, it did, yeah, for sure. You know, there's a lot of, and I think, as we've said, it was a lot darker back then than it is now. I kind of feel like they've edged away from that to get a bit more politically correct. You know, there's certainly less dead babies, there's certainly less tits, and there's certainly less, like, horrible mutilated stuff going on nowadays. I find
I don't think it's necessarily a political correctness thing, because for me that feels like a loaded statement, especially in the 21st century, where like people are like wokeism and all that bullshit. Where it's like, I hate that word. Pisses me off, because idiot right wing is a fucking idiot. But my point is, not to get too political, but my point is that, like, I think it's more a corporate choice than it is
they're playing it safe.
Thing where they don't want to isolate any younger people, right? And I think they're just a little bit more sensitive to it.
Yeah.
But even so, like, it is what it is.
They've got shareholders.
Exactly. That's it. It's the bottom line thing more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
But as you kind of said, the fact that, like, then that opens the door to, like, this community level, and has done consistently throughout my life as a hobbyist, right? Where in the younger days, going into which you can't really do necessarily today, unfortunately, but then more games club and stuff exist, where you can go in. You used to be able to obviously go into a games workshop and feel like you could belong for 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And, like, you know, there are people there your age that play stuff a bit older that you can look up to. Do you know what I mean? And another part of that, obviously, from a community basis and reading White Dwarfs and stuff like that, is like the hero worship of adult hobbyists that are amazing. Like looking through White Dwarf and seeing like studio armies painted by X, Y, and Z writer for various settings, or like, you know, battle reports where these grown ass men are having fucking the time of their life. And
I've got to interrupt here. I saw a picture that Peachy put on his Instagram the other day of him and Duncan doing like an old battle report, and he had hair. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
God, that must have been a long time ago. Sorry,
like,
Peachy, if you're listening.
It would have been like a picture of Peach, right? Yeah. Like in the old White Dwarfs, where it's like, and hobby army painter Peach, right, and with not in the social media age here, just like literally like a photograph, and then like a photograph of like him and someone shaking hands and be like, "Lol, cow, we had a great game," and it's like that vibe of like these older people that you would look up to naturally because they're older, and kids love to do that, right? And going, they're having a fucking great time. I'm gonna have a great time too, right?
Yeah.
But I think for me in the modern era, just to kind of bring this full circle, I think, again, I totally agree with you. The community thing is insanely good. And if it was that alone, I would be all about it. But for me, being completely selfish for a second, right? It is the artistic escape for me where I, can just separate myself from the responsibilities and drudgery of the everyday, and I love everybody in my sphere, and I love my job ironically as well, and like actually I'm very happy with where I'm at, but like even then you need time for you, right? And you need to take your time back, and like for me, just being able to get lost in this imaginative world for like, you know, half an hour a day, and just embrace it and just kind of do something really artistic and cool is just the best, man. Like just having that, and just I think we all need that. It doesn't matter what you do, whether it's like this or music.
I think it's healthy, right?
Yeah,
it's a much healthier outlet. And I know that we live in the age now of it's very easy to pick your phone up and spend like an hour on Instagram. I know many people who do it. You know, I occasionally do it. You know, here and there.
Me too.
And like I think it's time much better spent when you sit down and you paint some models or build a couple of models, and it's much better for you because you're not sat there stuck on another screen, and you can stick a nice audio book or podcast, / self-promote on in the background. hey. But yeah, I do think that's a nice, healthy outlet for people these days. You do need that break from life sometimes.
Absolutely.
And it's nice to be able to just switch off and not have this big like blast of everything and social media and responsibility and shit.
Everything fuck off, like everything go away. And you can and it's almost primordial where you can go, right, okay, even though it's fucking like plastic men, right? But you can go, right, at the beginning of my time as a hobbyist this evening, I went from bases to a unit of 10 dudes. Or I went from this to this painted model. Do you know what I mean? And you can actually, and you go, I fucking did something. Like I've actually achieved something today.
So this touches on like a point that I've made to a few of my mates, because traditionally I have been a massive video gamer over my life. Since I was really young, like I've played a huge amount of video games, especially when World of Warcraft came out. I think from like 2005 onwards, like World of Warcraft was my most popular video game, and I played it for the best part of, God knows, like most of my adult life, right?
Why do you think I love Beastman?
Yeah, exactly. And I, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't take that time back. I really enjoyed it. I played it with all my mates, had a great time, loved it. It was good fun. I love video games, and I still love them to this day. They're great, and they've become more and more of an art form to this day, even now.
Oh yeah.
But since becoming a dad, especially, your time becomes a premium, right?
Yeah.
And I've looked at it and I thought, well, I've got two options here. I've got an evening free. I can either spend it playing video games, or I can spend it painting or building models. And at the end of it, what do I have to show for both of those evenings? One, nothing really. I have fun, but not much beyond virtual, items or, just having a nice time. And two, I've actually come away with, and now I've painted a unit of Ophidian destroyers, and I can add them to my collection and use them in my games going forwards or whatever it is. And that was where I started to slowly lean more and more towards that as over the past sort of like 5 years. And I've just stopped playing video games now. I don't play any at all. And I've gone from playing like 16 hours a day at points in my 20s, and now I just don't play at all. Yeah, obviously I like work and stuff now, but the point is
yeah, but like you would have done that before, where you would have figured out a
way to fit them in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My thing as a teacher as well, because obviously I teach guitar, that's my main gig, right? Mm-hmm. And my thing with anyone that's like, I haven't practiced, and I'm like, if you really want to fucking practice, you will practice. Because you'll find time to do it. You'll steal time, right?
Yes, that is a good way of putting it. Steal time.
Steal time. And it's like, and I agree with the gaming thing, where like I'm exactly the same. Me and you are very similar in that regard. Mm-hmm. Well, I've had a considerable background with gaming throughout my lifetime, right? As a lot of our generation have, because we were that petri dish, right?
We were.
And I will be honest, I don't miss it at all. I don't really miss it compared to hobbying, where I think if I took that out of my like day to day, I would really get a bit depressed actually, because I love it so much. I think I am not missing conventional video games that much at all. Actually,
I miss playing video games with a couple of my close friends. I think that's the only thing, and I think it's always nice when your friends then get into this hobby. Like for example, one of my friends, you may listen to this. I know he does sometimes. Males, like he plays video games to this day. Somehow manages to find the time, and he's also recently got into Warhammer, and he's been painting stuff up. But so that's great, because now I've got a bit of crossover there. We played a game on TTS a little while back. He's going to come and play a game in the barn at some point this year, which will be really nice. He's painting his army up for it. And then another one of my mates, Alex, like he doesn't really have time to paint up an army for 40k, because it's just a lot of work. It's a big thing. So he's looking at getting into something like Trench Crusade and something a bit more skirmishy. And I was like, now that I've got the barn knocked out and we're now just basically progressing, I'm sure I could knock out a quick Trench Crusade force and do something like that and have a game with him at some point. I'd love to give it a go. It's been on my agenda since you mentioned it a while back. So it's that sort of thing. It's connecting and bringing friends into this kind of sphere, this hobby sphere, because it can be a lot of fun. And I do think that although video games are great, I just love this as like a way to connect face to face, which you just don't get with video games. Sharing a beer over the table, having a laugh, rolling some dice. It's very different. to when you're just sat in different places. You know?
I like how tactile it is.
Yeah.
Right, I'm quite a tactile person in general. I hug people. I like, I'm all about that life, right? And to get my hands on physical things, and admire something in my hand, and like look at it and go like, look at this. Like, it's a huge deal for me that you get to like move things around, and it's like, I don't know, it's fucking cool. It's
nice. You get to move stuff around. You get to pick all of your friends' hair out of the dice box, off the table, off the floor, off the desk, out of the bed.
That's the price you fucking pay. That's the price you fucking pay, buddy. That's the price
Honestly,
you pay.
It's like living with a husky. I can't imagine how Mel keeps up with you. She must be hoovering constantly.
You have no idea.
Honest to God. But no, it is genuinely a great hobby for that. And I think like it does... There's something to be said, like if you can get friends in a local scene, there's a lot of local hobby stores. We've talked about this so many times on the podcast before, but like if you can just go down to your local hobby store, there's always a little community there, and just break into it and get a game with somebody. It's so nice just to start that little circle of friends and push out away from video games and into the real, because it's just nothing beats it. When you go down for a little game on a Tuesday night,
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Well, I think if I were to hit my 40s, because I'm rapidly getting there, like I'm like only like 4 years off or whatever, right? And I didn't have this, I would feel so lonely. If I was just gaming at home, I'd feel the creeping death of like, and actually, I don't know, it grounds me, like having people in my life that and like the weird thing is, like, I think you get more lonely the older you get. Like, not to get too like spiritual about it, right? Where like your circles just close just naturally due to like life happening, people moving, families happening, and
people die.
People just die, right? Like seriously, right? Or they disappear off grid for a bit or whatever, right? So as an adult, it's really hard to make friends sometimes, right? Like being 100% real, and I'm quite a sociable guy when I want to be, right? And even then, it's hard. So, our entire friendship model was built off playing a great game of 40k. And it's like, and like, how insane is that? And I talk to you daily.
Yeah.
I literally send you.
Had we scored slightly differently in our previous game, we wouldn't have paired each other, and this podcast wouldn't exist.
It's nuts.
We wouldn't be friends. That's bonkers to me. I cannot
get my head around that.
Yeah.
I cannot get my head around that.
And Lichguard wouldn't be one of your most hated units in the game.
Fuck that unit. To be fair, I prefer them to fucking
they're not that bad
Wolfies. No, they're right.
But yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I do think this hobby is such
quite magic.
It's such a magical thing. I think we're very lucky to have it, and I think also like. But touching on that point you were just making about feeling lonely and all that sort of stuff, I think our generation's kind of split, because we as like part of our generation, and I mean age-wise, I think we are split into like the normies and the nerdies. And our nerdy generation, like us, if you're not into this tabletop stuff, I can see why you would be quite solitary. You'd be playing a lot of video games, you'd be hanging out at home and all that sort of stuff, and you wouldn't actually see a lot of each other because you don't really go down the pub that much. Well, unless you're, going with your family or your friends or, whatever, occasionally. I don't think that's as much of a generational thing for our nerdier side of the generation.
I don't think we can afford to do it, quite frankly.
Yeah, maybe the more normie side, I don't know. I can't speak for everybody, obviously. But
I don't think it's the thing. That's why pubs close all the time, right? Or they become gastros or whatever. Because,
it's not like it used to be where you just go down the pub with your mates every evening or every Thursday night or whatever. Like that for us is now going down the hobby shop on a Tuesday, going for a game of Warhammer, with your
buying
mates.
some plastic crack, having a paint
exactly.
sesh.
Well, looking at the plastic crack and your eyes water.
That's the one thing that I would like to do when I get a bit older and my family and stuff are moved on a little bit in terms of like their development, where I can have some free evenings where I invite some friends over for a painting evening or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's lovely.
Have a sociable painting evening.
It's just nice to do that sort of stuff. It really is.
Yeah,
really good.
Absolutely.
No.
But let us know why you love the hobby.
Yeah.
What got you by the balls, so to speak, or
the
pussies,
wings,
or nuns, or gender neutral, whatever. But let us know. Like, lay it on us, man, because I'm curious.
Yeah.
And did 40k scare you? Because oh my god, it scared the bejesus out of me. That Chaos Space Marine cover from Third Ed freaked me the fuck out.
I used to love the one with where they did all the Chaos Space Marines with the. I don't know who the artist was, but they were like quite sort of grayscale, but they sort of made them like purple, green, red. They had one for each of the Chaos Marines, and the bloody Slanesh one was proper freaky, and the Nurgle one especially.
Yes,
those
the artwork, the full artwork. That was in third ed.
Yeah, they were.
And you had like a Khorne one. You had a Khorne one that was like licking a blade.
Yeah, those. Those freaked me out when I was a kid. I was like, fuck.
And the Zinchi one held a sword, and there was like a planet in the background of it. Is this the same one? Is this the same one?
Such fucking cool
and then the Nurgle one, he had like a heavy bolter, and he looked like really
and he was
gross.
All like, gross. And then the Slanesh one had like big nip ripped up with the piercings.
Well, the Slanesh one is currently the cover for the box for the
I think it is. Yeah,
for the Emperor's Children box.
That's such
that gave me such nostalgia. You saying that immediately off the bat, like, gave me some nostalgia. Chaos stuff. I think that's probably why I didn't play Chaos so early. That and my best friend played Chaos at the time. But like, I think it just freaked me out. I think it just freaked me out too much. I'm just like, I'm playing monsters. Like, I'm playing actual monsters.
Yeah.
There we go. Wow. Cool. I mean, that was way more substantial than I thought it would be. That was like, we just unfolded that. We talked about really that one. So, this one's a bit more mechanical. But does narrative within the context of 40k games or the 40k style of games, because obviously there seems to be like the duality of competitive versus narrative kind of games, need more
Crusade, it's marketed
needs more depth, and should it even cross over to borderline a sort of micro RPG rogue trader space, if that makes any sense, or second eddy kind of space. What are your initial thoughts on this?
I think you... Or do you want to go first on this one?
I've got quite a lot to say on this one.
Go on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. There
absolutely. You go. I feel at the moment Crusade is far too 1 foot in conventional 40k playing and 1 foot in what we're discussing here, which is more of a narrative-based game. And I feel like it doesn't do either particularly well. It makes a very small percentage of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you really made like a narrative-based campaign good, and still keep the fundamental like mechanics in place, but have loads of like crazy mechanical things like a bombardment's coming down that might randomly thing, or if you're in a certain campaign, there might be certain things that happen, or like, or just really crazy stuff based on who you're fighting against. So like a table of like, if you're this faction and you're fighting against this faction, this thing happens and this modifies the state of play, right? Yeah. For example, if you were playing Dark Angels and you were playing against Chaos Space Marines, there's a fallen in your opponent's army or a suspected fallen.
How trite.
Well, this is it, right? if you kill them, then you count as catching them. That she'll give you like 40 VPs or something, right? Right, like, and that style of play, right? Where and I genuinely believe that that's how you make codexes or codices worth their money, right? Because at the moment, it's all data cards, right? It's essentially a book of data slates, and fuck like combat patrol, whatever, go away. You know, same with some very light Crusade elements, right? But if you make the fluff only like, I don't know, like 10 or 20% of the book, then you make half of it like a sort of a really in-depth RPG. They're making so much money. Like, make a team specifically make that kind of like system. And then the rest be data slates that will obviously be updated loosely, like throughout the year, right, by hub of Warhammer community. And then for me, you're actually earning your money, and then you can still buy the codices for that narrative thing, and it'd be worth money. Yep. If you don't, Warhammer Plus subscription just to get access to just the data cards, right? Sure. And then that pleases everybody. Where like then you're not filling your shelf up with crappy codices that you may not want. And if you are a narrative player, then you've got something that you've actually bought that's substantial, that actually, adds to the process. I don't know. I just think there's a lot that you can do with it, and it takes it back to its roots in terms of like what 40k was during the Rogue Trader days. And there's a lot of growth there that could potentially happen. And I just feel at the moment it's like a nothing thing. Like no one plays it, and it should be played because it should be amazing, right?
I've got thoughts on narrative.
Bring it on.
Narrative, by its very definition, is meant to tell a story.
Aye.
And I don't feel like currently it really does that.
No.
I feel like currently it's almost just a parallel rule set for 40k that just gives you fancier war gear and more bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really what it should be. I feel like if I was to do a narrative campaign, and we will be doing some stuff like this on the Battle Barn at some point, because I've got some ideas. But if I was to do one, then I want my characters to grow and have a character arc throughout a campaign. And I want them to not only get boons, but also negatives. You know, you can't just have a character who's perfect. You can't be like, I've got the mighty Doomslayer sword of such and such, you know, and then be like, cool, that's it. I'm just awesome.
Yeah,
if
your squad dies, if your squad dies, they're not like removed from the campaign. They just suffer a penalties table, right?
Yeah, and there are things like that currently, but it's you know, you need things to do with. I think it was something that really, they handled it really well. It was, can't remember, is it Shadow of Mordor, the PlayStation game where you play as the guy that's basically one of the ring wraiths eventually, and they did this really cool system where I think if you die in a certain way, it almost like gives you a fear of it or something, and that's kind of intriguing to me, because the idea of, you know, like, let's say that you get killed out in the open by heavy bolter fire, and now you're going to have like a bit of a fear of that kind of death or something like that, or, you know, you'd actually have penalties to it, and you start to think about, well, now I'm starting to develop negative character traits. This guy is actually developing a bit of a personality. He doesn't like being out in the open now. He's a close quarters fighter, this guy. He doesn't want to be caught out, you know, with his pants down. So, but then you think, okay, well, you know, let's say he starts racking up a lot of melee kills. So he improves his melee, you know, you buy him some cool equipment. He starts to get more and more bloodthirsty, et cetera, et cetera. And over time, over like a period of games, you want this guy to develop not only as a character in terms of, you know, adding to his strengths and, you know, and war gear, but you also want his weaknesses and fears to develop over time. Maybe he gets an injury that actually does cause him problems over time, and he actually needs to think about that when you're playing him. It becomes part of his character, not just on a gameplay perspective, but in terms of the way that you would run him from a story perspective.
And you can break that up into several things. Like if you had like a loyalist Marine squad or whatever, right, that got killed in one campaign against a Night Lords player, for example. Then you might get like a minor fear buff against CSM, but then like a major fear buff against Night Lords, right?
Yeah.
Or like, or affect Battle Shock or whatever. But also like make it really small, like cap it at like 1,000 points to start off with, right? And then throughout the course of the campaign, gain a bit more resource.
You could do some really interesting stuff like they did with Kill Team. You know how they give these special abilities to certain kill teams and stuff like that. Why don't you just bring some of those sort of things to factions within, you know, these narrative Crusade books? So things like, I don't know, if you've got Night Lords as a faction, give them some kind of darkness mechanic that you can, you know, let them apply darkness to certain pre-selected areas of the battlefield. You know,
you got a thick codex to use. Use it. Use the bastard
like,
codex.
Get creative. Like you can do some really fun stuff here. And I think this is what has always kind of irked me about Crusade, is I feel like when I look at Crusade, I'm just like, bookkeeping, it puts people off. Nobody really plays it right. And if they do, they never do really much of a story with it. They just kind of do a different 40k with different missions. And usually, it's cool to do like asymmetric missions, or to do some of the missions where it's like, you know, you've got a weird triangular deployment and you've got to kill the warlord here and all that sort of stuff. That's fun. You know, I don't disagree with those kind of White Dwarfy style missions. Those are really fun to do. And I think those make for good storytelling because they're a bit more interesting than your standard run-of-the-mill competitive balanced mission where you're each doing your secondaries, But I also think that there's a lot more you can do with the storytelling aspect of it. I also think, like, touching what you were talking about on like going more towards like the old school pen and paper RPG style, there's part of me that thinks it would be really interesting to run a game where you have two people playing and one person DMing it.
That is Rogue Trader.
Yeah, it's pretty much that. So like to do a Rogue Trader style campaign where you're basically you've got a bit of input from the DM, because I think what the job a lot of the time with the DM is, obviously, apart from playing, other characters in the world, etc., is to kind of balance it in a way, is to keep the game progressing, and it's to stop you just killing yourselves instantly, and also to kind of keep things fair, because a lot of the time things can just get ridiculously out of hand if you don't kind of think about how to balance them. So it's a really tricky one. I don't think they've quite nailed the concept yet. Hopefully they do at some point, because I'd love to see more narrative 40k. I'm going to kind of come up with an amalgamation, probably, of some bits and bobs that I'm just going to cherry pick out of various places from 40k and make my own shit, because I think it will just be more interesting. Yeah. But, we'll see where we go with it.
How cool would it be if, like, you had like a squad of Marines or whatever, and like, and your commander, your warlord, and then in one crazy game, your warlord goes down in a blaze of glory, and then you roll on the table, and it's like, oh, he's a dreadnought now. Like, he's like been put in a dreadnought,
so
and
cool.
then you have to elect another sergeant to be a lieutenant and start from the.
But then, like, you could have it like the Space Marine captain that killed him, like. They have another battle down the line, and then he realizes it's him that he's killed previously, and he's like, "Oh
gets a
shit!"
The dreadnought, the dreadnought goes fucking berserk and gains like 2 attacks, and it's just like,
"It's best served cold, brother."
So fucking cool.
So cool. This is the sort of shit I want to see.
So cool. Or that, you're a Chaos Marine, you're a Chaos Lord that's gone too close to the sun and like explodes into a fucking bloodthirster in a game. Do you know what I mean? Some crazy shit.
I do miss a bit of the old, like, the D12 tables that they used to have and stuff, where you could just be like, hey, roll on that, and you're like, oh shit, you're now a Chaos Spawn or a Bloodthirster or anything in between.
Chaos Gifts.
They were really fun, the Chaos Gifts.
Yeah, I think it was like a D100, right? Where
it was something daft like that. It's reminiscent of the Wild Magic tables from D&D. Like, I don't know if you've ever played a Wild Magic Sorcerer, but those things are crazy. The amount of silly shit can happen with them.
But like, it would just give you so much broadness in terms of like what you could do, and just like, even if you didn't need, the only thing that I would say about the idea of having a third person to be a DM, the only thing that I would say about that is like, that might be quite hard to source sometimes in terms of like getting someone to come down.
I wouldn't say that's how it should be as a baseline. No. I think that's something that you do as a special thing.
To have like a universal table that's like almost like a game state which is constantly changing, where it's almost like that role is given to like a table. You know
a lot of these things can be done with like a sort
mechanics.
Of like a third player that doesn't exist. I'm pretty sure. A few games that even Games Workshop have made have got that now, a couple of them. It's a really cool, interesting sort of idea, and I think it's definitely something they need to explore a bit deeper, and I hope, as I said, that they nail the concept at some point.
For me, you either do it right or you don't do it at all, and at the moment it feels so...
I know they're pushing it, by the way.
Yeah.
They really want it to work, and they really want to sell it, but they're just not really
but for me, I think the core concept is lacking. Like at the moment, right? Like where it just needs more life in it, and like I don't know. For a company as like prestigious as GW that have such a background in regards to like RPG gaming, where they've had various RPG systems over the years, but also like crossed over that in the past with like Inquisitor, even like back in the day where they originally started off life as a Dungeons and Dragons miniatures company, right? Yeah. So like. Actually, this is more their thing than it isn't. Do you know what I mean? So they should have that sorted, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There you go.
Interesting.
Let's know what you think.
Let
us know. So let's go with something else now. So this was quite an interesting one. So what makes, in your opinion, a perfect 40k story in its lore? So just having a lore-based subject. What is it, in your opinion, that like literally defines a perfect like 40k story, 40k piece of lore?
I think high stakes.
Ooh.
I think this is another thing that they've got slightly worse at sometimes in the modern era. You need to be able to kill your darlings, and you need to be able to actually punch in a book. And I think that some writers are really good at this, and they will, like, obviously, George R. R. Martin is prolific with his character killing, as everybody knows in Game of Thrones. But like, I do think it's very important to be able to introduce characters that you will kill.
Yeah.
and that, that will die, etc., that people will get attached to, because I really think it adds to the stakes of a story. And also just like when you're telling a story, that like the stakes need to rise throughout the narrative. You can't just like keep it stable, la-di-da-di-da. It's just not, story is conflict at the end of the day. That is the main thing of story. It's conflict. And you have to keep that rising conflict. And obviously you've got like story beats, and there are certain things you can go down the whole writing rabbit hole if you want to. There are a lot of things with how you should write a story. If you want to go back to the hero's journey and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, nice. Good reference.
But I think at the main core concept of it, I think, is just getting good conflict into the story, and also just making sure that the stakes are high. Because if you don't have that, you're going to go through... There's been a lot of books that I've read of 40k where it never really gets off the ground. I never really feel like anyone's in that much danger. Do you know what I mean? Like... You're all superhuman warriors, and we're all kind of like, yes, brother, da-da-da-da. And you're kind of going through the motions, and they get to the end of the story, and they're all slapping each other on the back. And I'm like, well, who the fuck threatened you there, really? No one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a slightly contradictory opinion to you, right? I feel like you either have to go one of two radically different directions, right? On one hand, in your sort of point is make it bombastic and huge and high stakes, like a Fall of Cadia, or like a
it doesn't have to be high stakes like that. It just has to be high. It can be high personal stakes.
Yeah,
it just has to be stakes.
Fine.
Whatever it is. Yeah,
stakes,
some kind of stakes,
or at least in terms of scope of size, of like massive sort of size, like I don't know, like Fall of Cadia, or like Plague War, or like any series where it needs multiple books to resolve the overarching vibe, right? And or you take it down a very different route where it's incredibly interpersonal.
Yeah.
Where like it's about like a sort of like basic bitch people trying to survive in this insanely broad, incredibly huge world where you are just one tiny element of it. Do you know what I mean? Like one absolutely like immaterial part of a greater whole, right? Where, it doesn't really matter whether in the long run you will win or lose. It's all about the fact that your character is surviving, right, in this fucked up universe, right? Like, whether it's a guardsman or a space marine, or just a titan, like precept or whatever, princept. Like, it's just you trying to survive, because no matter what level you are, life is cheap. Yep. And you will probably die, right? Like, there's only one thing that's certain in the 41st millennium, and it's going to be that you die in a horrendous way. Even if you're a Titan commander, like, guess what? Your opponent's going to have a fucking Titan too, and that, like, macro plasma exterminator triad gun is going to fucking roast you eventually. Yep. Do you know what I mean? Right? So... Does that make sense? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think some of the books. So, like, obviously, if you look at some of the Ravener books and stuff, like, they're, because of just the way they're written, because of how he is as a character, they're more on a personal level, and he interacts really interestingly with his team, and I think that is really cool the way they write those books. I don't know if you've read them, but they're very good. Yeah.
I love how pervy he is. Sorry, I just love how pervy
he's proper pervy. He's such a little fucker. But I just think like those sort of books are really nice, and they change the pace up a bit from all the big, like, real big set piece drama that we get with the Horus Heresy stuff. When we got bloody, like you said, Fall of Cadia style things, or like when Istvans and all this sort of things.
Yeah.
Those are massive set pieces, and obviously, in the Horus Heresy, there was a lot of like kill your darling moments. Big characters died, and there were big losses on both sides, and that's great. But a lot of that is old lore that's just been written into a nice, beautiful looking format nowadays, and sort of preened and produced as a nice novel. So like nowadays I'm finding they need to do what we were talking about earlier. They need to get grim and dark, and they need to pull the stakes up. They need to, ratchet that shit up, and whether it be, as you said, like a more interpersonal character-based stakes, or whether it be, global or even universal stakes, they just need them, and they need to be high, and they need to be lots of conflict, and it needs to actually feel like when you're reading this shit that it's gripping you, that you're on the edge of your goddamn seat the whole way through, and you're like, I don't know if they're going to make it through this shit.
Yeah.
Like, this is I'm not sure about this. Like, if you feel like that most of the way through the book, you're not going to put that shit down. If you feel like these guys have got this, you're probably going to be like, I'll pick this up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, it's what I affectionately describe as Tolkienism, where like, you know that for the most part your leads are going to survive, right? Like, you know that, like, bless him for all of Tolkien's genius. The one thing that I never felt compared to him and George in terms of their stylistical differences was that Tolkien wanted to protect his darlings and George wanted to murder his darlings, right? And I'm not saying that either path is the right path necessarily, but it's like when you feel like there's tension there where your favourite could die, you are invested 1,000 times more. Where it's like, oh fuck, like what's going to happen here?
There's a middle ground to be walked here, I think.
Exactly. And by that same token, killing everybody all the time desensitizes you to that, right? Where you're like, you want it to be a big deal when like someone that you care about might not make it, right? And like, and at the same time, it would suspend your disbelief in the setting, where like the setting is so brutal. Why would this random person just survive so much, right? Compared to like contemporaries or whatever. I also think that people need to fall more. And what I mean by that is like the insidiousness of chaos is so powerful. I think we need more characters to fall to chaos more often.
Dawn of War 1, librarian, what's his name? His fall to chaos.
Savage.
If you haven't played it, then too fucking late. It's like a 25-year-old game or something stupid. So too late. I'm spoiling it. But like he, I'm spoiling it. But like his fall is so cool in the way it's handled in the game. And I think that sort of stuff, as you said, it needs to be explored more. And because chaos is insidious, and it touches different people in different ways. His whole thing is that he's obviously a librarian. So, he sort of he's weak to it in different ways and strong to it in others. So like, and it's almost like his hubris gets the better of him. But I think it's a very interesting universe that we have here. And I think there are such great characters in it that we can explore. And I hope that we see more of some of them. Like a few personal favorites of mine that I would love to see more of. People like Caldor Drago. I really want him to come out the warp and just start fucking shit up. Like,
but even then, you could do a story of him just in the warp, right?
Yeah.
How fucking cool would that be? I would read that.
100%.
I would read that. Like his
I just got this vision of him. Like, do you remember when Constantine went into hell in the film with played Neo?
Yeah.
That's what I've kind of got as my vision of like old thing.
Well, it depends what Chaos God as well, right? Like in as much as like that could be quite corny, but like the Garden of Nurgle is just some pestilent jungle of just death and like,
but he's just
everything
so
wants
pure,
to eat you. Yeah,
he's just like nothing can penetrate.
A plant is like coming over to start like eating his armor, and it's just like going, nah, I'm all right.
You just touch him, just rears away.
Like, dude, there's so much you could do.
You could do like that nice, like when it goes to touch the armor, you just get like this pulse of like
it starts
blue
burning
energy,
and it starts burning away. Do you know what I mean? And every step that he's making is like scouring the earth itself as he's like walking.
That'd be super cool.
But this is it. Like, there's so many wild concepts that you could go down, right? And again, it makes it incredibly interpersonal because it's just focusing on Caldo, right? And like where he's at, and like this is why I love the Celestine book so much, because it went, I don't know if you've ever read the Celestine book, but she travels through the warp like every time she dies to be resurrected. So and like she goes through all of like the trials, going through like all the Chaos Gods and like them trying to tempt her and stuff like that, and like it's so intense, and that happens every time she dies. And spoiler alert, she dies a lot, right?
Yeah,
she's a saint. She's a saint. It's like constantly resurrecting and kind of going through it. But like, again, it just makes everything so personal, and that you get so invested on an emotional level to like these interpersonalized stories and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what about you? Well, like, what else do you think? Like,
emotion for me.
Yeah, emotion.
Like, not being afraid to like And one of the things that I do love about like Games Workshop in general, right, is of course it is hyper, like almost paradoxically overtly masculine or feminine based on the context, right? Where it is always like, brah! But the thing that I love about it is like the intensity of the emotion, where like on one hand, you get this almost roboticness with the characterization of like everybody being so stoic and like taking it on the chin, and it's also like British in its like thing of like keep calm and carry on, lads. Get on your feet. We're only being attacked by a fucking load of demons. Get up, boy. Do you know what I mean? Like that. But then the other part of that Britishness, right, which is the suppression of emotion. Yeah. And when it finally does boil over and explode, it's intensely emotional, right? And like is so like, you know, like that bond of like people, you know, breaking or like whatever, or like you know, like the best thing that we love about the Horus Heresy is the daddy issues of the Primarchs, right? And how very human-esque Primarchs interact with each other, right? And like, you know, when Ferris and Fulgrim were fighting each other, and the intensity that Fulgrim knew what he had to do, which was kill Ferris, right? Yeah. He was obviously so emotionally connected to Ferris in so many ways that when he did actually execute him, it broke his brain. Where he's there on the battlefield after just executing Ferris and being like, rah! And just like freaking out and crying, and just like, you know, there's all this battle going on around him, and like so much death and destruction, and he's just like weeping or like losing his mind in like the void of like that conflict, and it's so human. Yeah. Like, all of a sudden, this demigod has been reduced to like a wailing babe on the battlefield just because he executed his brother that he loved so much, right? Which, you know, is fucked up. But it's like, you know, and that's it. And that's the reason why we love the Horus Heresy so much, is because of the humanity of the inhuman.
Oh, the humanity.
For me, it's not really the set piece of Inspan itself, where it's like, look at all this epicness.
It's all the micro.
It's all the stuff, right? It's Korax talking shit to Lorgar and being like, I'm going to kill you, fuck. Or like, you know, like I said, like Fulgrim and Ferris, or like, you know, even between loyalist Primarchs and the tension between like in Imperial Secundus, between like the Lion, Guilliman and Sangi, do you know what I mean? And like, and that tension and that tension there. Or do you know what I mean? Like, you know, that's why we love it. Do you know what I mean? Or in the Eisenhorn, and the reason why the Inquisitor books across the board are so popular is because it's about a person and their people.
Yep, their team and how they work and how they don't work. You know, they don't always get on, and that's the nice thing about it. They're human at the end of the day. They all have traits, and they have good things about them and bad things about them. They always do as they're told or listen, and you know, it's great. And I think that's how it should be, right?
And
they're characters.
They're secretly suppling on Slaanesh teat or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it makes those betrayals even more painful.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I think that's it. The insidiousness of chaos.
Yeah.
I think we need a bit more of that. I think.
We do. We need more. I think it's such a cool setting, and chaos is obviously, I think, you know, Tyranids are really cool, as we've talked about, like this unstoppable force. But I think until we really see the true menace of the hive mind, the Tyranids as a force aren't really going to take on that much. They're sinister, but when we actually interact with the hive mind for the first time properly, that's when their sinister levels are going to be like
one-dimensional. Well, this is it. They're very one-dimensional in that regard, right? Big scary aliens eat you. It hits that primordial fear in your brain, which is like, I don't want to be fucking eaten, and like, and that's fair. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, oh fuck that. But what I love about chaos, right? And for example, if you had like a book about guardsmen, right?
Yep.
And you've got one guardsman that's like a fucking mega hard guardsman that's really good at killing, right? That you love in your team because they're a hero in your team. Do you know what I mean? And they're great at killing, but then they start killing and loving it a bit too much. Right? When all of a sudden they're like that, and then they start muttering in their sleep like.
And then you open their pack and there's a load of skulls in there, and you're like, "What the fuck are these doing?"
And then after years of campaigning together, and then they're like, "Oh my god, is he like?" A chaos? Is he a corn worshipper? And he might not even realize he's doing it. That's the thing. Like, he might just go into that headspace, and then all of a sudden he's on the field going, "Blood for the blood god!"
And then he's just turning on everybody.
Like, and then he starts, and then someone's like, you know, grabs him on the shoulder, and he turns around and shoots him in the head, and you're like, "Oh fuck!" And then you've lost not only one character but two characters, and then that's it. Or the insidiousness. Do you know what I mean? It can be so
very nice. Turn up, chop his head off, and they're like, "Look into this light."
Oh, you've been sterilized now. Do you know what I mean? Like
Men in Black style.
But this is my point, and I think the insidious of chaos needs to be explored more because
definitely.
Even when you don't have a chaotic threat happening in real time, even if you had like a book where you had a load of Imperials fighting aliens or whatever, then you can get blindsided by someone getting a bit too cozy next to chaos, right? Where your attention is over there and you're dealing with the big scary thing that's eating your face. But equally, around the corner is like Sinesh going, "You want tits, don't you? You want lots of titties." And he's like, "I do want lots of titties." I think Sinesh would fuck me right up. I think that'd be the god. I think that'd be the god that would really fuck me up. Like, I'm a bit of a pacifist, so Corn wouldn't be able to get there, and too dumb.
I don't know. I think Nurgle might get you with the amount you've been shitting yourself this year. So
that's true. That's true.
There should probably be Nurgle.
Yeah. So like, stop my suffering.
I'd be like as fast asleep, and Siege would be like, "Hey, you like magic?" And I'd be like,
"Yeah, I do. Yeah."
Want to take some warp dust?
All you've got to do is turn your friends into spawn. And you're like, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea. That sounds like a good idea." But yeah, no, dude, and that's the point, right? Is like, I think that needs to be explored more because I think we become hyper fixated with whatever the big bad is. That we forget that chaos isn't going away. It's there. No, it's always there. And especially with humanity in particular, like humanity and chaos are like literally bound at the hip now. So it's like, it's cool. It's well cool. So like make it more prevalent.
If I had to turn any of my friends into a chaos spawn, it'd be you.
Of course it would.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because they're technically a beast.
True.
So your dream of being a beast would come true.
I don't want to be that kind of beast.
Wow, it's too late. Maybe, you didn't specify.
Look, I either want to be a goatee beast or a beast with like 10 tits. Just let me have all the
10 tits?
I don't know. Let me have all the tits. It's fine.
Okay.
10 tits and 3 penises.
Tits.
3 penises. I'll have a great time.
Yeah, I'll make sure they're all on your forehead. Perfect.
No, I'm not going to do it.
The windmill. Love it. On that note,
I'm so
on
screwed.
That bombshell.
I'm so screwed. Sinesh knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
I'm like completely corrupted.
I would give you tits in the worst places. They'd be on your elbows, your knees, your heels, one on the end of your nose. Don't let me ever do that. Right.
There you go,
let us know what you guys think about what makes a perfect 40k story.
That one is a realm of like Salvador Dali at the end there. Like, let's have tits on, let's have penises on elbows.
Well, it's just the most uncomfortable place I could think to put a tit.
A tit on a penis. I thought you said penis on the elbow. No. But yes, let us know. Let us know what makes a good 40k story, and let us know your favourites as well, like and why. Right, but it's all good. But thank you, my absolutely beautiful penisy titty co-host.
Yeah, thank you for my triple dick-headed co-host as well. It's been a pleasure as always. We will see you guys in the next one.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Surreal. That was fucking surreal. It's funny. Like I feel like I came out of a fever dream at the end of that episode. I was like, did that happen? Did I talk
Did
about?
we just talk about having 10 tits and 3 dick heads?
Man, it's the way forward, man. I don't know. I think I would quite fancy 10 tits. That might be quite fun.